Hi everyone, my name's Z Razak. We're at the Baker Street property meet today and we're going to have a lot of value added, new venue, already got our little VIP passes. Lucas, first time at the Baker Street meet. This is going to be fun. And the sun's come out, can you believe it? It's been not great weather for last week or so. So we're looking forward to this event and be ready for all the value that we're going to add during this presentation. Respect. Hi everyone, got the first person who's been willing to get onto the camera and show her property entrepreneur. Hi Evelyn, nice to meet you.
Hello, hi Z, nice to meet you. How are you?
I'm alright.
Good.
And do you know what? You mentioned something and I thought it'd be really good.
Yeah.
You're a sourcer?
I am a sourcer at the moment,
and you've got
yes.
a project right now in Plymouth.
I do have a project in
I love
Plymouth,
it.
yeah.
And that is a commercial property that you want to convert
Yes,
to residential.
Yes, I do want to convert it into residential. So it is going to be a 6-unit, 2 different bedroom apartment, and I'm looking for investors for that.
What's the gross development value, GDV?
So it is going to be 1.2 million. I am buying it hopefully for 150,000. It needs a lot of work on it for about 600,000 for that, and then after that you get 58% ROI.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Do you know what? That meets the criteria. You'll see Ranjan and Andrew talking about this and adding value. You alright? This guy loves it. I love the smarts too. The first person talking about a project. This guy knows his stuff. Got Ranjan here as well. And we're talking about how she's going to structure this. Maybe needs to get on a bit of a mastermind with Ranjan.
I do.
How do you add value to this project is how you structure it. If it's a commercial property, which it is, you have to check for VAT. And there's potential stamp duty land tax opportunities here.
Okay,
how you structure it. And then when you structure it, because you want to get the person buying it, then they don't have no impact. We better seize this up. But this is how you're going to do it. And use a group structure will be really beneficial.
All right, thank you very much. Lovely to meet you.
We got number 2 or number 1, whatever way you want to put it, part of the double act to run the show here, Andrew Roberts, and he's going to give us a bit more insight into the market update that you just presented in front of 300 people, which I find is one of my favorite parts of this. I'm not just blowing smoke at him, it's the truth, because that saves you a lot of time of research and the insight. Andrew Roberts, the amount of info, the value. Summarize
thank you for being number 2 today.
Join number 1 or number 2, whichever way.
Seriously though, the market today we've evidenced it's not just a buyer's market, but there are 1.6 sellers to every buyer. We've witnessed how prices are falling both on the market with agents, the valuers are dropping prices, how sales are falling through, how mortgage arrears are growing, and I've shared the 6 property strategies that are the big ones that everybody can capitalize on right now. And a little nugget for your viewers, because to get the 6, you've got to watch on YouTube the 6 tips, but I'll share a big one for you is HMO owners. Now, people who have bought HMOs and they've particularly gone to town on them, doing a back to brick refurb, they've stripped it out, they've spent big dollar bills, refurbed it to a high spec, they've then refinanced at a top rate of yield. What you're finding is, as those guys are either now not able to afford their mortgage, or when they're coming off fixed rates, they're not getting refinanced and they're having to put money back into the deal. As you know, on commercial deals, it's all about the yield.
I think just to add to Andrew made a huge point there and a huge nugget. The other thing is the cost have risen because of utility prices and everything else. HMOs are not as profitable as they used to be. And if you add in Article 4 and all the attacking that has had for HMOs in certain parts, especially in London and different parts of the country, it's becoming really high compliance, high cost, and the financing is now becoming a big issue, isn't it? It's not making the yield.
It's not making the yield, but also these guys are either selling up as motivated sellers or they're being repossessed. And I looked in my town in the Article 4 area, and I have never seen so many HMOs for sale in all my life. So the marketplace is turning, and what you're finding is you can buy these very cheaply. They're already done up, but because you haven't got into the deal at top dollar, you can get in, especially if it's a repossession, 30% less at least, because you're buying it at the cost that the bank want back, not what the person paid for it and spent refurbing it and took money out of. It's a great opportunity there for you.
Do you feel, looking at those deals and specifically on that property now is cash flowing on a full let basis? So it doesn't have to be a HMO necessarily, or does it still have to be a HMO, but because you're buying it at a lower price, you're going back to the numbers that were there before the additional financing?
I think a lot of these buildings have been converted so you won't single let them, but because you're now buying at a discount to what these guys have spent, it now works on the numbers. Because the interest rates have risen, they didn't account for that, they now can't afford to service the debt, and that's their problem.
Would you go through a HMO strategy or a furnished holiday let stroke service accommodation strategy on those apartments?
If it was a choice of those two, I would go HMO every day. Service accommodation is a very, very intensive business to run, to manage, to operate. And by the time you've taken into account the time and the energy and the effort of managing it, the small increased percentage you get is not as good as getting the HMO, which is a lot more hands-off. Not only that, you're at the whim of the public. You stayed somewhere, there was a cobweb in the corner of the room, you now don't give it a 5-star review, you give it a 3-star review, and that affects future people booking that property. This is what a lot of people don't take into account, is the whim of the general public.
I think Andrew's made a great point there about customer feedback, and the other big nugget that you should take is how well do you do systemization. The people that I've seen being successful with service accommodation stroke furnished holiday let, they experience and they understand the systemization, and they tend to have more than one property in one location, because then they have easier spread of overheads. I think that's the hardest bit.
You've got to have a reasonably significant portfolio for it even to start working as serviced accommodation, because you've got the cleaning, the laundry, the maintenance on multiple properties, and literally you have hours to get in and get out and get that property turned around. Not only that, you are 24/7 on call, the dishwasher's not working, the toilet's blocked, and people expect the concierge from the hotel to trot upstairs and deal with it. But it's not easy.
I think there's a balance, and you're absolutely right. You have to factor in this, because the compliance of HMOs is gone higher, and the cost of running them is higher. So you have to balance it up. But it's whether you want to give it a long-term away, depending on average life of a HMO person that's going to move in.
There's pros and cons. I personally wouldn't do service accommodation. It's too much hard work. I know there's huge tax allowances in service accommodation, but I wouldn't do it because of the time. Return on time is more important to me than an extra £5.
I love how he's put that. That return on time is when you're trying to get to a business that can work without you, because that's what a real business is, ultimately. That is how you measure it. The time is money, because money ultimately is value, how much time. So when you understand that connection, that's what Andrew said, and the values give tonight around all the aspects. I loved how you were thinking about the impacts and what's happening right now between the rental and the purchase market. And I want to finish on this because I know got a lot of people want to speak to him. So the rental and the purchase market was a really interesting between the north and south divide. Massive. I think how you explained that was huge, because up north the rental is actually cheaper to buy than rent, and the south is totally the other way, and the Midlands being the cut line, you reckon?
Absolutely. The West Midlands, the East Midlands is the cut line in the country. You can see it. What I've done there is taken the average price of the average house, and I've looked at what the mortgage payment would be on that and what the rental payments would be, and there's a clear divide north-south, and what you're seeing is it is very affordable to buy a house up north, and you are paying up to several £100 a month more to rent it. it doesn't make sense. In the south, and particularly central London, it can be up to £2,000 a month cheaper to rent the house than to buy on a mortgage.
Absolutely, because the value of property is so high, isn't it?
Exactly.
That is the golden nuggets that this man has just given, and that's why I put in my post, if you ever watch on LinkedIn, about the time savings of knowledge that he's spending loads of time compiling for the audience, and people don't always appreciate how much value and time it takes to create that value. I do really appreciate that, Andrew Roberts.
Thank you very much for coming again.
Thank you so
Brilliant.
much.
Thank you.
Got the main man here, Ranjan. Baker Street Property Meet has restarted, and the huge value, Ranjan. Love the venue.
Nice venue. I think it's great for networking. I mean, a networking event, it's about business networking, it's about learning, and it's also about social. You put those three things together, and then things happen. Because it's all about meeting people. It's the contacts and the people you meet that take your business forward, as well as the knowledge, actionable knowledge.
I think you've hit the nail on their head. As I always say to anyone who's speaking, the king of commercial property, and he's going to give you huge insights on the new PD rights.
Yes.
I want to have a few minutes on that. You're expecting, like everyone else, that the planning requirements are going to double from 1,500 to 3,000. That's the big one. And you mentioned something I hadn't heard about, the conservation area changes. For the viewers and the LinkedIn and all the rest of the social media family, what do you mean about the conservation issues?
I mean, at the moment, if you've got a shop, you can convert the front of a shop to residential if it's not in a conservation area. They'll allow that even in a conservation area, as long as you don't change the external envelope. Any changes to the external envelope will be subject to planning. And then you've got the guest houses, hotels, B&Bs, which will be massive as well.
And that's going to be quite easy, or easier to change, because they're already structured that way. But they're being not allowed right now, were they? Or it was difficult.
Well, a lot of 10, 15 room guest houses are uneconomic, quite frankly.
Not people don't want to stay, they want to stay in apartments for service accommodation and things like this.
But they're uneconomic for anyone to provide them. There's just not enough rooms to apportion over your fixed costs.
When you're doing the bed and breakfast,
you
and
need
all
more.
That's
it's fine for husband and wife who run a B&B, and the wife makes the breakfast, and the hubby fixes the tiles on the roof and all of that, and they don't take a wage out. But no one wants to work like that anymore. So most of these small-time B&Bs are unviable. It's apartment hotels, the automated stuff that's in all residential use. So
it's breathing new life into this, isn't it? And this is the difference maker, and this is the value. If you haven't been to Baker Street Property Meet, you want to make sure you come here. I always say to people, one of my favorite events, and this man gives you huge value, just like he has again. Thank you, Ranjan.
Last week of every month, BakerStreetPropertyMeet.com.
I think January, February might be different next year, but always look at the guides and the new venue, which we'll be showing as well. Thank you, Ranjan. Really appreciate it. Hi everyone, we got one of the presenters today from Ranjan's event, Stuart. And Stuart gave huge insight, which I really wanted to speak to him about, his property developments that he's done, and how he's structured them, how he's made added value, because they were really interesting. Especially I love the commercial resi, because as we advise the king of resi, commercial conversions, Ranjan, on a lot of tax matters and accounting, it'd be really interesting. How you made an uplift? I saw you went up what, £300,000-400,000 on a
320 grand, I think it was.
And that's on a 1.5 million GDV.
Yeah.
That is amazing. And how you structured it? How did you get that deal?
Well, that was a debt deal, so we owned it 100%. We just borrowed 1.1 million, and then we basically paid 100 grand back within 12 months. So it's a good deal. It was quite fast. We've done it in 12 months. We bought it originally to do seven one-bedroom units in a shop, and then we looked at the application, found some more space, and managed to get 9 one-bed flats out of it. So it's become quite lucrative.
I love it. And where was that in the country?
That's in Hampshire, in Farnborough in Hampshire.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of people doing deals now, especially in London, where there's a lot of Article 4, which is preventing the PD rights.
Yeah.
Have you found, you were saying that you feel that's not even an issue. Do you still find it
I think
issues?
the council have got a criteria. They have to hit a certain circle of properties. And if it's got a shop at the front and you retain it as a shop and you want to use the space upstairs, whether it's an Article 4 or not, I've yet to come across a building that actually won't be allowed to be converted into, as long as it meets minimum standards and the light issues and stuff, then you can basically buy any building that's got 2 floors above it, and you're going to have a very good chance of getting that into residential.
This is where you need some good advice, and one area Stuart specialises in, as we were in, construction.
Yeah.
The scary bit, because one of my good friends is a builder, no disrespect, hard work to get a good builder, and you were mentioning that, because that's where the value adds on.
That's exactly where I bring the value of returns with regards to taking the risk on the builder, because we've got 70 contractors in-house. We understand plastering costs per square metre, flooring, kitchen costs. So a lot of the costs that are scary to people and they always want square foot prices, we break that down and then we actually put a per unit cost in there to cover the kitchens, the flooring, the tiling. And then we're constantly adjusting that. So every SPV, every job we do a line item by line item to give the investor transparency. But equally, we then learn and can build a calculator for the next 2-3 properties we do. So we're constantly fine-tuning it to make sure that when we go out to the investment market and go, right, we need to find an equity partner for 600 grand, we're going to give them 40% of the SPV, and here's the exact cost and what it's going to cost. I mean, there's always risk, but we eliminated a lot of it, that the investor feels totally secure, and they actually get a share of the uplift, share of the profit, and the equity and the income that the building produces. So.
Don't you love it? He's broken down some of the deals and hopefully getting all this value. And one of the things I wanted to say, do you consider yourself more a property investor or a property developer? And what I mean by the difference is developers buy a whole direct property to sell. Just 2 seconds, I'm just finishing on. Alright, let's get out. We're getting kicked out of here. We finished that last bit. So last question was, are you property developer, property investor? Do you get it to sell or do you get it to hold?
We hold everything. Yeah, we work too hard to sell them. I think it's basically, do you want to put 1 unit's worth of energy in now to get paid 1 unit's worth of pounds, or do you want to put 1 unit's worth of energy in and get paid £10 in the future? And that's really the same amount of energy, but to hold it for a longer time, have a longer time horizon, and just let the market and inflation and the government and the banks, which you can't stop them printing money, it always attracts good money, values going up.
I love the strategy, and that's what Ranjan always goes on about. He loves his property investment and holding, and this is a big difference, man. Listen, thank you, Stuart. Thank you for adding value. Perfect.
See you later.